Well, this is Baruch Flashman here at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, and it's my pleasure to bring you this little piece of Zohar on the 6th day of the week of Parshas Beshalach. If you have the Matak B'Devash, it's on page Top Pei Zion. If not, you can follow along with this video. So we're down at the bottom, and the Zohar has been speaking about Elisha and how he brought back to life Habakuk. So the secret's over here. And the question was, Elisha originally told Gehazi that he should go and he should place his staff, that is Elisha's staff, on the child, and he would be revived. But the woman herself, she saw the way that, I think it means that the way that Gehazi looked at her. And as a result, she knew that he was not a man who was fit to perform a miracle. So he said, so she urged Elisha. Halok Elisha al Besa Lishonam. So he went to this place, to her house, in this place called Lishonam. And Hashem, and he prayed to Yudke Vavke. V'al v'yishkav al Yelad, and then he went up, and he lay himself on top of the child. V'yasam piv al piv v'einav al einav, and he put his mouth on his mouth and his eyes on his eyes, etc. Why did he have to do all of that? Why wasn't it just sufficient that he should pray to Kodesh Baruch Hu and that he should bring life back to the child? Now, what does this mean? He says that the moment Elisha was able to see V'yada Shemakom Zeb, that this place ad ata. Now he says that this Malchus was tied together with him, and he saw that the place of it being tied together, Atahu Garam Shayamos, it is the place where he was holding, I'm going to read it again, by Malchus. That's what caused him to die. Now let's read it again, because he's got to have a whole song here. Elisha Hashgiach, he was able to look out and see, that is Elisha. V'yada shemakom zeh, that he saw that this place, zeh shalom Malchus, shenis kasher bo, that this child has been tied to Malchus, and as a result of that, ad ata ku garam shiyamos, and that's what's causing him to die. V'yasem piv al piv, and so that's the reason why he placed his mouth on the child's mouth. Be'enav of enav, and his eyes on his eyes. L'kasher le ba'asra achra, in order to try to tie him and bind him to a different place, a place ilah aser dahayin ishtakakube, to a place that's higher in the spiritual worlds, a place that life is found. Now the Matuk translates like this. He says, "Kadei l'kasher oso b'makom acher," to tie him in a different place, that is his soul, his spirit, that his life force, and a place acher elyon. And he says, where should be Zer Anpin? In Zer Anpin. Macham shahachyev shahachayim b'chababina nimsoim sham, a place, because Chaim comes from Bina, he says. Bina is the upper hay. The upper hay enters, or the Vav enters into her either way. One way or another, she enters into Zer Anpin and spills out this life force. Nimsoim sham. So then the Matuk writes in parentheses, and he said, V'ayedech achibuk, so by hugging him, v'hanishuk, and the kissing him, he wanted to pour into him from his spirit, his breath, hu shehoyim mushrash b'zer anpin, and that is what is really mushrash and zer anpin. That is the concept of breath, the breathing, a ruach. Besod hitzdavkus ruach barucha, which would become the clinging, or the clasping of ruach baruach, of the one breath with the other breath. So there's more to be said about this other places. So the concept is la'aker oso b'malchus, b'malchus, to take him out of the concept of malchus. And malchus basically is the moon. It has no light of its own. So as a result, basically without the sun, it's dead. So he says, la'aker oso b'malchus, b'malchus shenis kasher bo b'techila, where they tied himself to begin with, It says that soul was tied simply to Malchus without a union with the life force coming from the tree of life, Zer Anpin. Ela is ar rucho chadach b'la'elav is kasher b'hai aser v'asivo le nafshe. Translation. Ela shahoyer ruach echad b'lamala b'zer anpin. So what he does is, remember, ruach goes with the concept of zer anpin. It's the vav like a pipe. It blows from the top through the vav, through the pipe, into the bottom, which is where Malchus is. So he says, so that ruach now, this wind will come from zer anpin, and this kasher b'zecha b'makom shalom Malchus, and tie itself to that place, the place where Malchus is located. So this causes a yichud. Again, the pipe concept is getting the shefa from Ima, which is the upper hay, coming through the pipe, which is evolved down to the lower hay, which is Malchus. This is the life force itself. Garam yichud zun, and it causes a yichud in Zohar, which produces shefa and chayim. The v'zecha v'shiva v'zun as nafshach al gufo, so this causes the zun to bring its life force back into the body. The love hochi, if you don't do it this way, lo chava koyim la alma, shim l'chabahoya oisakain la hamshik ruach v'zer anpin la malchus, because that's what it is. And this is what the Zohar is saying over and over, this way, that way, this way, that way, that by putting the two of them together, you have life. So he said, v'kein la hamshik ruach v'zer anpin la malchus, to bring it to malchus, v'lig rom yichud zun, and to cause a yichud between opposites of male and female. Lo choyakam l'techiyah l'olam. He said, we'll never come back to life if you don't do that. Because of Sham, and so it's written like this: V'yored enair ad sheva famim v'nita. So it says, so that he said v'yizror. So it means he sneezed. The child. This is a quote from a quote, and he said the child sneezed 7 times. So they said v'tashdesh. Hanar Sheva Pamim, he sneezed 7 times, connected the Zion sphere, Shal Malchus, corresponding to the lower 7 spheres of Malchus. Let's say Malchus, she's talking about the Zat of Malchus. Once again, Zat means 7 lower spheres. It means Chesed Gevurah Tiferes Netzachod Yesod and Malchus of Malchus. So that's what it means. He says, V'achar kach v'yipkach anar es einav, and then after bringing this life into the lower part of Zer Anpin, he's then able to, of Malchus, which is the Zat of Malchus. Achar kach v'yipkach anar es einav, the child opened his eyes. Below Salik Yater, but it didn't go up any higher than this. Below Allah Yosef B'Sheva Sefiro Shel Malchus, but it doesn't go higher than the 7 spheres of Malchus. Shekal Achas Kolula Ma'aseh, that each one of them is incorporated with 10 other severos. Shehem Keneged Shivim Shana, which correspond to the concept of 70 years. Kamadat Amar, you say like this: Yimei Shanasecha Bechem Shivim Shana. Secha Keneged Sheva Sefiro. So when these concepts of 7 goes along with the lower 7 spheros of Malchus, this is like the Zohar kind of pushed us over that way. So the Matuk wants to explain for its own alomaka bevor lael shenisha mushrosh b'malchus, that this Habakuk remained rooted in Malchus. Elishasham b'komo, but there in his place, that is where he's home. Nishba lo rucha ilah mezer anpin, the ruach ilah coming from zer anpin. Let's see if I can do a little bit more. So he said, because of a Rizal B'Shar Psuki, Ki Habakuk Shahoyach B'Darga Demosa B'Kach Meis B'Shana B'Shoina Shenoilet. Because Habakuk came from the level of death, of not being alive. That is, being his nefesh not tied to that of Zer Anpin. He has no life force in him. So therefore he died in his first year, Shenoilet, V'Lonaskayim Yud Beis Chodesh, and he didn't even live 12 months. V'az Chutzrach Elisha, so then Elisha had to come a Navi. Lachsor V'Lechadesh Bo Od Rucha, so come back to him, to renew with him a new Rucha, new wind, a new breath. Elah min haZohar, from the male aspect. In other words, giving is a male concept. And the child, therefore, which is a child of Malchus, will receive that Ruach, which is coming for their Shuhul Darga, the Chai, which is a level of life. So now the Zohar goes on and says like this, and let me see if I can move this slightly and move this up. So it says a Masik Devar V'Amar, so he's going to conclude his words, and he says like this: V'Nahu Habakuk Neviah. This is Habakuk our Navi. Kamadat Amar, like you say like this: Amar at Hobekes Ben, that you are hugging a child. V'Habakuk Hu Maloshan Kibuk. It's a lashon of hugging. So he said v'Makash, but it's a problem. He Chabuk b'Boy she just said hugging. His name was hugged. In came Habuk Hoyel Lihikari should have been called just Habuk. My Habakuk. So why do you have this double? He's a betray. It means two. Hamora al Shnei Habukim is two different times that we have clinging, or two different clingings. And Betaretz elachad deime, but one. So he explains. He said Rabehibok echad shehabku imo, his mother. His mother was the one she hugged him. That's the first. V'chad the Elisha, and one the clinging came from Elisha the Ischavik Imei, that also the Chibuk Echod shall Elisha Shenischavik Shehachayehu, that he hugged him, and as a result he brought life into him. Davar Acher, something else. So that's one way to look at it. Why Habakkuk is like that. Here's another. Trey Hibukim Ababe. He had two different kinds of clinging, two different kinds of hugging. Bein l'chai sitra, bein l'chai sitra, from one side or the other. What does he mean? Bein l'pi hapshat shachabkek also imo pa'amayim. So whether you say it's according to the simple meaning that his mother hugged him twice, achas kashinoida v'achad achas shachachyo. So one would be when he was born, she hugged him, and then another when he came back to life, she hugged him again. So that would be the simple meaning. So, but the secret of it is he's a Habuk Echod. One of the huggings was Shalom Malchus, or it had to do with Malchus. That's what really it was hanging for, was tied to him from the beginning. Hibuka Achrona the Sadak Lecha the Dargali Elohim Yater. But there's another hugging. Hibuka Acher. So that one, the Bedregas El Yonis, because that one is the Hibuk that come from the higher levels, Yoser Vakashra Bezer Anpin, which means that he is hugged also by the spiritual element, which is the real life force inside of a person called Zer Anpin. Over again, Kach, for this reason, Habakuk Trey. That's the reason why you have the word Habakuk 2 times. This is Baruch Fleischman. Today is the day of Yesod, and the end of the week of Parshas Beshalach. Have a wonderful, wonderful Shabbos. We'll see what happens later on today.